Greetings YouTube! Today I'm going to show you some quick maintenance tips on your Hoover Self-Propelled U64xx. They made so many different models of these, I'm not even going to include them all. But typically before you get started vacuuming with these you have to check a few things, so we're going to cover that in this video. Alright. So this is my Hoover U64. Let's see which version of this it is. It's a 85-900. They made a few different versions of these. They started making these late 1997. Really it was the Consumer Reports in 1998 that ranked it really high, that made this machine so popular, and made this machine go on a 20-year reign. This machine, you correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, was made by the Hoover Company. It was made by the Hoover Maytag Company and was made by Hoover TTI. So it had a long run, and it has now finally been discontinued. It's October 2008 and it's finally been discontinued. But there are plenty of these left on Amazon, plenty of these left out there, and for under 300 bucks they give you a lot. Though some of the things they give you are really sacrifices. Especially compared to today's market. Now, it might be unfair for me to compare this to a 2018 machine, or even a 2010 machine, or even a 2005 machine. But, you know, because it is 2018, these are still in the market, people still use these. We're going to do that. Now, the other thing about the Hoover, we're going to call it the Hoover WindTunnel, self-propelled, is that they really weren't horrible machines. They tended to last alright, they were built alright, they were heavy. I'll show that they were really heavy. It's heavier than a Miele U1 or S7 upright. And they had some basic flaws to them as well, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But let's talk about maintenance, let's talk about what you have to do with this machine. So I think the first thing to note, we're going to move the camera a little bit, is you cannot pick it up by this handle because you will break it. Do not do that. You can pick it up here, but never pick it up by this handle. And I'll explain that. There's also a convenient handle back here to pick it up by. So, the reason you never pick it up by that handle is it's self-propelled. And you can break the self-propel mechanism, which I will now show you where that is and how to check for that. Excuse the sloppy camera work here. So, right here, we're going to just lift the camera up. Right here, there is a cable, and that moves the self-propel arm. And the self-propel arm, this plastic piece in here, can break if you pick it up. Also, the cable can come out of its place, come out of adjustment, or you can break the steel cable. So all those things can happen if you do that, so you never really want to do it. Now, here at this angle, this machine looks like it gets completely flat. That's only if you hold the pedal. Most people never get it past this place. So let's go on to some of the maintenance with this machine and talk about what we have to do before we get it up and running. Because this machine was left to me by the previous owners of this house, which why there wasn't a central vacuum. I found out from the previous owner she didn't believe that they existed back then. So that's why there wasn't one put in. But the previous owners of the house had like 2 or 3 of these things scattered through the house, and they're inappropriate for my house. They are appropriate if you have carpet and some tile, but they're not appropriate if you have wood floor or marble or anything nice. Just not appropriate. So let's look at what condition it was left to me in right here. So we're going to pop the cover, and this is how 90% of these machines I see come back, or I see them in, which is why I'm doing this video. So you can see the dust is here. The dust is leaked all over the bag compartment. And yes, they are using a cheap paper bag, and that's definitely part of it. Get some gloves, because who wants to touch this? But the real reason there's so much dust is even if you go with a HEPA bag, there's no gasket around here. So because this was made They basically chopped a Hoover A bag or a Hoover Z bag down to fit this. When they originally came out with this design, they borrowed the bag collar from the Hoover Concept 1 or the late model Hoover convertibles, if you're familiar with those. So you see it just kind of puffs dust out the side of it. And this is the half full bag. Now this is a replacement bag, and this often you will see this Y/Z, and that is incorrect. The Y and Z bags are two completely different bags, but some generic manufacturers do that. You know, just to kind of save money. The thing I wanted to do with this. So there's the bag. That's what's in there. Showing you that's in there correct. I'm going to run this first. I just want to hope I can capture on camera how much dust comes out of here when you run one of these. Of course, you would have to plug it in, which came unplugged when we did that. Alright, it's exhausted here and here. Now I'm in a well-ventilated area. I've got an exhaust fan right over there, but you can't see it. So that's fine in here, but in your house, that is absolutely horrible and not acceptable. So I don't even need to get the particle counter out to show you the dust. If you can see the dust, that means it's above 5 microns. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to change it and get this thing cleaned up before we use it in the house. Proper way to dispose of these bags. So the nice thing is if you do get an aftermarket bag, they'll have like a little piece of tape for self-sealing the bag. Though the Hoover genuine bags are absolutely good. Don't shy away from those at all. So there's a 1-layer exhaust filter. The earlier ones had 3 layers, and there was a HEPA option, though it's not a sealed system, so I kind of don't feel that it's necessary to do. Pull out this filter, and everybody forgets about this filter. These are really cheap. You can find these online. They're a 2-pack. Buy them, change them every 6 months to a year. Same with this. Every 6 months to a year, change it. If you want to buy the HEPAs, do it. You just really have to keep an eye on it. So I just want to show that this looks the same. Now, recently I saw another YouTuber who does excellent videos, just, state he liked the machine, and he did a very basic review. But long-term use of these machines, this is how they come in, this is what they will look like, no matter how vigilant you are, because again, it is leaking dust before it even gets in the bag, which we all know to be a problem, and that's why most manufacturers have shied away from that now, including Hoover. Some of the newer Hoover Y bags do have the gasket, but again, it's really not sealed leading up to there. There's other places it leaks in, and I'll show that throughout the video. The first place it does leak is through the headlight. You can see how foggy this headlight is. Let's just zoom in there, get you guys right there. You can see just how foggy that headlight is. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take care of that. We're going to clean this up. There's 2 ways you can clean this up. You can bring this outside and blow it out with compressed air. That's a great way to start doing it. I personally don't want to get that dust everywhere right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab a central vac. We're just going to start vacuuming stuff out. now that we have that vacuumed out, it still looks pretty bad. Even though this has a bag check indicator in here, not that it really ever worked that well. We're actually going to wash this separately. We're going to wash this piece separately. This pulls off, we're going to wash it separately. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this outside, we're going to run the vacuum and allow it to blow itself out. And then with a combination of compressed air. Alright, so we're outside. We're going to blow it out with compressed air. I'll show you how to do this properly. This works for any bypass machine. So next, we're gonna put the cover on. We're gonna run the machine. We're gonna clean out most of the dust. We're not actually picking up from the ground. We're just running the machine. And what that has done is that has flushed out the internals of the machine with the airflow of the machine. And now we're going to give it one more dust off with the air compressor. Alright, after you have blown this out, you can see this is much cleaner, but it's still not clean. So what we're going to do, again, we're not going to run this anymore today. I will actually put the rest of this back together tomorrow. And you can take apart and do this, but the tolerances are so loose on this machine, I think you're wasting your time. So what I prefer to do is just take a rag and wipe down the majority of it, sanitize it with a rag. And if this was a Miele, if this was a Sebo, if this was any other vacuum, I probably would go to the motor. But because this machine was built to handle harsh dust in the motor, we're really just going to be changing the filters and letting the filters take care of it. But this gets the majority of it out, and we clean out where the bag has leaked, and you can see just how bad that rag is getting really fast. So sometimes it's necessary to break these down, but it's really rare as far as I'm concerned. Getting in fine areas like that, you can always take a screwdriver, put it in the rag, and then kind of use it like a Q-tip. An oversized Q-tip. Just kind of a little tip there for those who need to clean their machine real well. And yeah, we're just wiping this down so that the filters aren't overly saturated with extra dirt. And you've already seen me vacuum and blow it out with compressed air. So we've loosened all that out. You can just see what makes it past the bag right there. Quite a bit. That's why I would never recommend one of these machines for somebody with allergies or pets. It's just too expensive to run. You've got too many filters, too much leaking dust, and the bags are pretty small in this unit. And the reason I say they're pretty small is you can't fill them all the way because they're not top feed bags. They're like center feed bags. Like they're not as bad as like a Dialmatic, but they're pretty bad by today's standards. But they were they were just acceptable back in 1997. And that's the thing, is this machine, I think this would be the minimum standard. This machine is the minimum bar of what is okay from a vacuum, what is acceptable. And I'm wiping this off not so much to clean it, so much to sanitize the front of it. Now we're going to get to the bottom side. Put the adjustment down. We're going to see what's going on down below here, really in the guts of the unit. Right there. So we're going to, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the 4 screws off there. Maybe bring the camera out just a little bit. And these 4 screws, you can use a drill if you want. Just make sure you don't over torque them when you put these back in. Now this is a newer unit, and if you couldn't tell by the model number or some of the color changes, the newer units, these were black. But the biggest change that they did was when TTI took over, they went to a CWP brush roller, which has sealed ball bearings. The old ones had open bearings, and that was really bad, and they had to be lubricated about every 6 months to a year before they would out. Or you would change your brush roller every year. So it's up to you. So that's got to be cleaned off, obviously. But I want to talk about what's going down here. Because this is kind of some of the faults of the machine right here. So one would think that you would just like have one rubber belt, or you would put a rubber belt and a rubber belt, or a non-stretch belt and a non-stretch belt, but they didn't. They used a V-belt right there. Then they used a stretch belt. You can see it's a genuine Hoover. Let me show you the difference between this after a few months of running it. I mean, you can just see how much this just shreds the belt, and it doesn't directly connect to the brush roller. It actually is just going from the brush roller to the self-propel. And they did this on a few vacuums where they had this extra pulley. They did it on the WindTunnel 2. They did it on a commercial machine, which name escapes me, the Conquest. That's it, the Conquest. So it's just something to think about. So the thing you need to really check is this little idler pulley. You see me pressing, I know it's black on black, but you see me pressing up and down it. We're going to get a screwdriver, I'm just going to point it out. Just make sure you guys see that on camera. So that guy right there, you need to rotate him on, and you need to look for cracks in the plastic. And I see no cracks in the plastic. This one is good. Now the reason you're looking for cracks is if this is cracked, it won't hold tension on this belt, and then the roller won't turn. So that's super important to check. The other thing is hair and stuff gets on the side of this guy. And again, later models, it was a sealed ball bearing. I have one of the open bearings left over from the Hoover days. So this was one of the transition machines between TTI and Maytag. But so you must clean that out. The bearing actually needs to be lubricated on this one. The other thing that had open bearings was the transmission. The transmission itself occasionally would need to be greased if they were really loud. And it's really complicated to do, and it's not something I even recommend doing. I recommend just dealing with the noise, knowing that this machine is going to self-destruct at some point. So that's an unusual thing. Another thing, the wind tunnel feature of the machine. We see the word wind tunnel, we think of it as buzz marketing. But what the actual wind tunnel part of the machine was this extra suction channel diverted under the brush roller to bring suction to the front of the brush roller and create a vortex. At least that's the way it was explained to me from a Hoover rep. I actually don't think they clean any better. I think just having the round brush roller chamber is enough. But the wind tunnel part, this guy is perhaps one of the most sensitive and brittle pieces. I would always stock these in my vacuum shop. And, okay. That one's not broken. It is cracked right there, if you guys see the crack. But this guy will crack out and break. Nothing to do with you, it's not over torqued, it's just the way this goes. Though I do recommend hand torquing this part. But I like to take this part and wash it out because you can see all the stuff builds up. In fact, one of the flaws with this design and some of the older vacuums is they had all these spaces exposed, and you would just see all this stuff build up. Because the brush roller was beating and grooming the carpet, but it was also creating more dust than the machine could suck up. And this machine here has a side feed suction, which means the suction over here is not going to be anywhere near as good as it is over here. Even though they tried to compensate with this wind tunnel path design, it's still not the same. And if you put sand on the carpet and vacuum with this, you'll absolutely see it. So we're going to go ahead and clean this out. Of course, the best way to clean out any vacuum dust from a vacuum is with central vacuum. Take your crevice tool, put it right there. So now that that's all been cleaned out, we're going to wipe it down. But first we're going to actually blow this out with compressed air over here. I want to get it really, really... So we're just going to do that. Again, you want to be in a well-ventilated area when you're servicing vacuums. Super important. Alright, so that's been cleaned out. Now you can see that there's hairs gathered around this pulley. Or if I tilt it, you can see the hair that's not actually supposed to be red. Pull that. Again, this vacuum came with my house. It wasn't actually something I went out and purchased. Alright. There's a lot of hair wrapped around there. Alright, next, I'm going to try and get this on camera the best I can. So that metal piece right here can scrape this pulley and chew it up. So I always just give him just a little settle back to his place, just like that with a screwdriver. Now that gap is good. And by hand, because this machine is old and brittle now, we're going to check the torque there. And he is good. We're going to check the torque on the silver screws with the machine. Alright. So it has been retorqued properly, again by hand. So now after you've done all this nonsense, now we can wipe it clean. And you can start to see the clear. I'll put the orange screwdriver under there maybe. You can see the cleanness. So that, get that nice and clean. And again, the reason I just do this is for sanitary purposes. I like to clean out all my brush roller compartments, especially on a vacuum that wasn't mine that I'm going to use in my house. a little bit later, just for fun. We're going to do a review on this. Alright. Again, this piece needs to be cleaned off as well. You can bring it to the sink, or it's not too bad, you can wipe it off with a rag. Alright. Now, I have seen if this is broken, the customer doesn't want to replace it. I've seen vacuum shops glue this back into place. Again, that's not proper if this is broken. It's time to change it. We're going to just slide it in. There's actually like a little groove that it goes in right there. And this screw. Again, don't over torque it. Hand torque this. And what's difficult is that the threading on this is pretty stiff. There you go, that's torqued. So now that's all clean, we can now address the belt issues. I'm going to show you how to check the brush roller and the belt and the idler pulley groove. So before you put this belt on, you have to put the thin belt on. And if it sits flush, like so, it might need to be replaced. Ideally, this should sit out and look something like that. So just a little bit should stick up. We're talking a millimeter. But if it's flush, or if it's convex, the belt needs to be replaced, and or the groove has worn wide here and the brush needs to be replaced. So those are wear things, and the same goes for the pulley back here when you put the belt on there. I find that these belts and the brush rollers tend to wear at about the same time, so I recommend replacing those as a set. And I recommend replacing every 4 to 6 months this belt right here. Alright, not everybody's going to have a wire wheel at home, but if you do, you want to clean a brush roller, make sure it's wet, because these nylon bristles will melt. Turn on my exhaust. Safety first. I'm just going to clean. Not only does this pull the schmutz out of the brush roller, but it also really cleans in between the bristles. And I recommend safety glasses or a face shield when you're doing this. I'm not touching the wood, I'm just picking the brush up. We're only going about so far in when we're doing this. Flip the side, the other side. I'm using a low speed on my grinder. I find the high to be too fast and ineffective. See just how clean that got. As good as it needs to be. And now we can install this back in the machine. A lot of new techs actually struggle with this. It almost should be a job interview question if you're going to be a vacuum technician. And you guys are going to say, oh, that belt's easy. Well, not for most people. And most people are not going to change their belt on their vacuum, believe it or not. But if you're one of those people, I'm going to make this look real easy. So, we've put that on. We've checked all those checks we talked about. And we're just going to walk it on. We're going to make sure, we're going to hold this with my thumb, just make sure this isn't slipping. I don't have any uneven grooves on this belt. I see that this belt actually here was good. which is kind of rare. So next we're going to put this guy on. And you want to make sure the shaft here is clean. And if we shine in there with a flashlight, you'll see that it's clean. You'll see that that's clean in there. So we're going to put it on that belt, then we're going to stretch it to this. But we're just going to have to walk it on. Is going to be the method that we're going to use. So we're going to put this on just like this. Get on there. Make sure it's on there. Then you're just going to basically walk it on with your thumbs. So I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. So you're just going to walk this on. And now it's on. Simple as that, and if it's on, that's what it should look like. Next, these guys, again, these can vary in color, but these always come loose. And if you forget them, it's not really a huge deal, but it is because it leaks suction out the side and causes the machine to whistle. So we're going to put that on there. Make sure it's on there. Again, those face up. Those were supposed to be an attempt at edge cleaning. Of course, we know that didn't work. Next, when you put this on, it is very easy to break this guy. So we're going to zoom out and let you guys see. But that guy can break. But mine is good today. Alright. We're going to set this on a low torque setting today, because we do not wish to over torque these. And it's important to turn them reverse to hear a click. And that's important when you're dealing with plastic. You want to, I'm going to do this by hand so you guys can hear, hopefully. Turn in reverse. That click, now you are lined up with the thread. And you want to make sure you do that either with the screw gun or by hand. There we go. Now, doesn't matter. We're going to put those 4 long screws in and torque them. Alright, so that's good to go. Next, I just want to, now that it's clean, you can see the self-propelled cable is properly in place. So that's good. And this is the carpet hardwood floor setting. Make sure it's in the carpet setting when you're changing the belts. Make your life a lot easier. Alright, once you get the bottom back together, it's time to work on the top half. Now I've already installed a bag on this, but we're going to install the rest. So you got to replace this, change this, whatnot. I washed the filter cover. Again, most of these bags never had a gasket, so they do tend to leak a lot of dust. That's why filter maintenance is pretty important. We're going to change that. It just goes in the side right here as well. There is a HEPA filter available for these machines. It doesn't come with a gasket. There's an EnviroCare version that does come with a gasket. It's not bad, but again, because the machine's not sealed, I don't really see a point. And I'm not personally going to daily drive this machine. So covers as clean as it's going to get. In there. And these covers have always just been, the latch mechanism is just these 2 things, so they've always just been kind of a little forceful at first, and then simple as that. Well, I guess I should see that the machine is working and not blowing dust, well, more than unusual amount of dust out the side. So let's fire it up and take a look. So I now locked the drive in the neutral position. You notice the wheels kept spinning a little bit. What this is an indication of is that the drive must be readjusted properly. And I can see, yeah, it's slightly out of adjustment. This is just kind of a hassle with this vacuum. And it's a T25 in case you're wondering. So we're actually just gonna... Oh. Okay. So that out of adjustment is actually because it's cracked. Alright, I hope you guys can see, but where the adjustment is, we're just developing the first start of the crack. I'll grab a screwdriver, we'll point to this. So right here you can see there's a crack big enough to fit a screwdriver in right there. Maybe get it better, you can see that crack is just horrendous right there. Really is a shame. So I'm going to have to strip this down and change this piece now. And again, this is just one of the flaws of the machine, and it comes from somebody lifting it up by the handle, which normally would make sense, but you can't do on this machine. Alright, so I've addressed the crack, we've replaced the part, and we'll do a whole separate video on that. So that's for a later date. And I just wanted to quickly talk about the lens and how dirty these things get. This lens always gets super dirty. So we're just going to quickly pull it off, and I'm going to show you how I prefer to clean it. I guess there's really only one way. Give you an idea. We're going to just again show you all the dust that's in there. So again, this is not a sealed system, so we're just going to quickly clean the inside of the lens. You can see there's like hair and big stuff in here. Like, it really does like a lot of dust. And considering that this machine's design was from the late 90s from a company that was struggling and later had to be sold to Maytag to survive, it's, you know, it's an understandable oversight, but something we wouldn't be okay with in the 2018 market. I always put these in by hand because this lens can get brittle and crack. Alright, you can see that lens is much clearer now. Well, it looks like we're changing the light bulb here. Or it could have come loose. We're going to find out. Nope, the light bulb definitely broke. You can see it's a 7-watt Taiwanese bulb. So we'll have to get a new light bulb. So those are some quick maintenance tips and things to look for with your Hoover self-propelled upright U64, name a model number, they made so many of these. One thing I will say is, you know, it's a design that lasted 20 years and it did everything. But thankfully it's been discontinued and Hoover has replaced it with things that are not self-propelled and work a lot better. As always, thanks for watching. Give this video a good thumbs up. Check out our Instagram, and if you want to keep our channel going, definitely check out our Patreon, where you can pick the vacuum of the month and see various little behind-the-scenes snidbits and stuff like that.